Hey, welcome to Cooking Something Good. I'm your host, Dave Duso. Cooking Something Good, where fun is food, food is fun, and it's always foodie fun time here at Cooking Something Good. Great show today. Colleen Campbell, she's one of the owners of the Happy Hounds Center. It's in Whately, Massachusetts. It's a daycare. It's the daycare where Elle, the mini golden doodle, the cutest dog in all the world, goes. They also do dog training. It's a great place, and she's going to talk about dogs. She's going to talk about nutrition for dogs, how to train your dogs. Everybody loves their dog. If you're a dog lover, you're a dog lover. If you're a dog hater, you're a dog hater. If you're a cat lover, you're a cat lover. And if you're a cat lover, there's something wrong with you. That's just the way I see it. All those cat lovers are like, click, I'm leaving. But hey, I don't like cats. That's all I can say. Although sometimes they kind of, like, there's this one cat that rubs up against me and is like, come here, give me some attention. I can't help but like that stupid cat. I don't want to like that cat, but I do like that cat. You know what I was thinking today? I was pulling out of the grocery store, and there was a little fender bender, and there was a police officer there. I would never want to be a police officer because it's just not, it's dangerous. Let's start with that. Sometimes it's thankless. Almost all the times it's thankless. But I saw this little fender bender, and this guy was back up pushing my cart. I get the little cart, dun, 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 have my little groceries in there, have my keys up there so I wouldn't forget them, which I often do anyway. I put my phone and my keys up there, and then I throw the thing because I try to be like a golf shot, into the little thing that holds the carts, you know what I mean? And I can't remember. I always leave my keys or my phone there, and then I get in my car and I don't have my keys. I have to go out, oh yeah. If it's just my phone, and that's why I put my keys in there too, because if it's just my phone, I'll drive home before I realize I forgot my keys, or my phone rather. So this way, at least I forget both things, and I can't leave until I have my keys back in my car. Does that sound logical? No, that's insane. But hey, it's me. We're talking about me here. Anyway, so I saw this accident. This guy's backing out, and he's an older gentleman. He doesn't see the woman driving, so the woman tries to speed up because, she saw him, right? And she hit him. So he gets out. He's like, I didn't see you. Well, you were backing up. And she kept saying, you were backing up. So the police officer came. And didn't take him long, by the way. It was they must have been right in the area, about 2 minutes. Anyway, they both asked me to stay so I could tell my side of the story. So I said, yeah, the guy was backing up. He didn't see her, obviously. And she kind of tried to get around him quick, and she hit him. Yes, he was backing up. So the officer said, did you see him backing up? Yes. Well, did you have time to stop? Well, yes, but I tried to go around him because he was backing up. And if you're backing up, it's your fault. He informed her that if she saw him and continued to proceed and hit him, then she was at fault. She was very upset by this, probably about 30 years old, and she was furious, absolutely furious, yelling at the cop, yelling at the old man. She wasn't yelling at me. I got my car and left. I looked very carefully when I backed out. I never want to be a cop. You never get a call, hey, report to Walmart. Everybody's in a really good mood and they just want to shake your hand and buy you something. No, that's not how it works. Great show. We've also got Andrea Jorgensen, Seattle to Sunapee. And next week, I'm going to be doing some live recording in Singapore. Yes. 24 hours in an airplane. I'm going to be flying over there. We're going to learn all about the food they make in Singapore and all the different types of food they have and the different markets. It's from what I've been told from people who've been there many, many times, it's a really interesting place. I can't wait. That'll be recorded next week. It'll be on in about 3 weeks. But today, Colleen Campbell, Happy Hounds Center, Whately, Massachusetts. She's your guest along with Andrea Jorgensen, Seattle to Sunapee, here on Cooking Something Good at the Jones Barbecue Studio, the best barbecue sauce in the whole land. You can get it at csgbn.com. Just go to our store. You can get it great discount price delivered. Christmas is coming. We've also got great gift certificates there, too. It's going to be a fun show. Let's get rolling right now. Let's start with Colleen Campbell. Hey, welcome back to Cooking Something Good, the Jones Barbecue Studio, home of Jones Barbecue, the best barbecue sauce I've ever had. You can get it at csgbn.com. With us today, Colleen Campbell. She is the owner of Happy Hounds Center in Whately. Hello, welcome to the show. Everybody loves her dog. I love my dogs. My dog is one of your clients, Elle the Mini Golden Doodle. Ver-
He is.
And she loves it there. She comes home exhausted. Everybody loves their dog. We love our dogs. And, you talk about a foodie show and nutrition and what you feed your dogs and how you train your dogs and how you let your dogs play and the way your dogs act. It's all connected and important. Let's start with the food. Every dog is different. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I brought my poor little dog into the vet, and the vet said in no uncertain terms that it was, I think she said obesely, no, what, no, morbidly obese. And I said, I'm doing what you told me. She's getting 2 cups in the morning and 2 cups in the afternoon, and she exercises. She said, David, it's a quarter cup in the morning and a quarter cup. So Elle was getting too much food. How much food should a dog get? Obviously, it's different by size, weight, and everything else. But is there a standard or are there rules?
There's some guidelines. It depends a lot on the dog that you have. So it's not a broadband, like if your dog weighs 60 pounds, it needs this much food, because if your dog is very active or it's a different breed or it has some health issues, there's different factors that go into that. So there's a nice chart that has an ideal weight. And generally that's how I determine whether my dogs are getting enough food or not. If my dogs are looking good on that ideal weight chart and the vet says they're good, then they're good. So the weight chart, which I gave you a link to, this little picture of.
Yeah, we're going to put that up. We're going to put that up so people, you're going to see it. I think so. If Jack, the producer, does it, if I do it, you're going to your computer will start on fire. But if Jack, producer, sees it, you can click here and you can see that chart. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Great. Yeah. So when you're looking at your dog, they should have a nice tapered look to them. So the front half where the rib cage is should be a little bit larger. And then as it comes back to their back end, it should taper underneath. So you get a nice little, almost a curve shape. And then from the top, you should see a wider front that tapers in towards the back end. So if your dog is all one size, they're a little bit too thick. And if your dog goes in, comes out for the rib cage and goes back in, they may be too thin. So you should be able to feel ribs or see the last 2. If your dog is very athletic, you might see the last 2 ribs, and that's okay. That's a good thing. If your dog is a pet, you should be able to at least feel the ribs, if not see the last 2.
Yeah, and it's true. I see dogs that you can see the ribs and they get narrow in the back. Those dogs usually lickety split. Can run like the wind. It's important that dogs get exercise.
It is.
How much is too little? How much is too much?
Again, it depends on what you have for a breed and the age of the dog and whether they have any issues with their structure, if they're not conformationally sound, if they have some, if their toes are pointed outwards and their hip socket is pointed outwards, they're going to be able to tolerate less exercise than a dog that is structured the correct way. So there's a lot of factors that play into that. So it's always good to discuss with your vet or with your fitness specialist, if you have a PT specialist for your dog, how much exercise is good for your dog. But generally, you can kind of go by what you have. If you have a little small dog, they're probably not going to make the 5-mile run. Yeah. If you have a larger Great Dane dog, those dogs are also, they're bigger, they have a bigger stride, but they also have so much stress on their joints because they are bigger. They can't go as long as a compact, medium-sized dog that's built to run or built to do some sort of a sport or a working breed. So those are things that are best to just talk about with your vet and with your PT specialist. And
I think if you've had a dog long enough, you can kind of figure out your own dog. I mean, I do see those big dogs, and a lot of times they have joint issues and general health issues. And big dogs usually don't, I think it's true, the big dogs, we had St. Bernards, I had a 205-pound St. Bernard when I was a kid. He was as gentle as can be. That Cujo movie screwed it for everybody. He was a great dog, but he died when he was 9. He had joint issues, and it's a lot of dog to carry around.
It is
on 4 legs, and I don't care how stout your dog is. That's a lot of weight on those legs. I don't care how big your dog is. The legs usually aren't huge.
Yeah, and those type of dogs tend to be really good for walks, like going out and going for walks and not doing a whole lot of high impact jumping or hiking or, the things where you're climbing over rocks and over logs and over those sort of things. If you're doing a low impact walk in the woods and that's your idea of hiking, that's fine. But doing like the really major, straight up the mountains, going over boulders, going around rocks, through ravines and things like that, puts a lot of extra stress on their joints. And that's something you definitely want to be cautious about when you're working those big dogs and the little dogs, because the little dogs, and when you have breeds that have shorter noses, so the boxers, the French bulldogs, the Boston terriers, things like that, pugs especially, if they have a smaller airway, they can't regulate their temperature very well. So they have a hard time keeping themselves cool. Yeah. So especially on hot days or when you're doing a lot of heavy exercise, those dogs tend to overheat and have issues on that side. So you have to be very cautious of how much you're doing with those short-nosed breeds as well.
And is that why they always have that strange breathing? A lot of times with the pugs and the Boston Terriers here, that sound. Yeah. Is that why?
It is, because we as humans made the breed to our specifications of what's pretty, which isn't necessarily what nature had intended. So we've kind of messed up those little dogs, and now we have to do more maintenance with them to make sure that they stay safe and are okay.
And it's so arbitrary. Everybody thinks their dog's the best dog, the most beautiful dog. We all think she's just playing as she's or he or she is gnawing your arm off and you're bleeding. It's like, or she's got your dog in a stranglehold and the dog is bleeding. You're like, this is beyond playing. You do training, you do daycare too, and I got to tell people it's in Whately. It's
Happy Hounds Center.
Happy Hounds Center in Whately. We've been going there for years now, 5 years. Dog loves it. So you can go for daycare, but you also do training and you do some training stuff at night. Talk about your other programs, and then I'm going to ask you a question about dog safety and why it's important to get into that. So don't answer that part of the question. Just answer the part of the question that is, what else what else you guys offer, and then let me follow up.
Okay. So we offer boarding, daycare, and training. And there is a piece of the training in our daycare and our boarding. So the structure of our daycare and boarding is that we have some playtime that is focused on appropriate play and manners and boundaries and keeping things settled. So we like to have more of a day at the beach rather than the frat party.
Yeah.
And then we have some training that builds confidence and, again, boundaries and the handler focus, getting the dogs to really want to pay attention to us and less to their environment. Yeah. And then we also have classes, private trainings, and more advanced levels of training as well.
A lot of times I see that dogs will get to, and we walk at dog parks, so we go there, and it doesn't happen there, but at dog parks, people may have the friendliest dog in the world, but they'll, and sometimes it's the owner's fault, and sometimes it's the people addressing the dog's fault. Rarely is it really the dog's fault. And they'll be either people like, hey, come here, you're a cute little dog, come here, and then the dog jumps on him, and the other person who owns the dog, stop jumping, come here, jump on me, and the dog must be like going, you two people are freaking nuts, right? Because dogs don't speak English, Spanish, German, Hindi. They don't speak, they speak dog. And if you get really worked up on either side, your dog's going to get all worked up. So that's why I think when you're going to a place like, especially with the daycare, I just notice when they're doing that kind of training, it's almost for them like a game, which they love, and it tires them out. But if a dog's coming up to you at the dog park, is it best to don't look at the dog right away? Especially if the dog's all excited. I mean, how should you act if you're with a dog and don't know a dog, and they're just coming up to you? And how should you act if you're the owner walking into that situation? These are usually unleashed dogs at the Northampton when we go to Northampton Dog Park.
Unleashed dogs or on leash?
Not leashed.
Not leashed. So not leashed dogs is a little bit tougher because there's no real control. The dog is going wherever they're going. And most dogs don't have the boundaries set in place where they come up to a person quietly. So if you have a dog who's coming up to you, you're going to get a few different responses when the dog is coming up. Sometimes you'll get those really easygoing dogs that come up and they just kind of wiggle their way up slowly and then they kind of lean on you. Those dogs are great. You can pet them. Petting a dog, it's always best to go under the neck and under the ear rather than on top of the head or on top of the back. Yeah. This is a very dominant position, and it makes dogs a little bit nervous. And especially when a human is coming to pet a dog, we all tend to bend over, which puts a lot of pressure visually on that dog of something coming over them and looming over them. So that can be very intimidating for a lot of dogs. So even the dogs that are good with people, if they don't know you well, that's a high stress position. So
And
the
let me ask
best
you,
is
is that almost to a dog? Is that almost like a threatening kind of? They're coming into my space, and I'm not comfortable with this. This is that I'm going to get defensive. Is that what's going on in the dog's mind?
usually all dogs feel that pressure. Some dogs are more reactive to it than others. So some dogs might cower and run away. Some dogs might get defensive and freeze and even snap. Other dogs might just go, I'm fine. But for the most part, you're going to get one or two of the either freeze and get defensive or cower and run away. And even the wiggly ones, it's a more stressful position than it is if you're on the side of them, scratching the side of their neck or under their chin. These are more safe areas. If you watch dogs meet each other, if they do it appropriately, the dog that's more submissive will go underneath the chin and do a lot of licking underneath the chin, just showing that they're submissive, they're not a threat. So that's kind of what we're doing, is petting on the side of the shoulder here, not over the back, and under the chin and under the neck. That is a more comfortable position for the dog. If you have a dog that's running up to you full force and it's barreling in and you know it's going to jump on you, what you can do is kind of block them a little bit and divert them by, as they come towards you, you can step into it and turn your hip. So it's almost like you're kind of bouncing them off of you. So it's not an aggressive getting into their space, because you don't know this dog, you don't know how it's going to react. But this way, it's a very neutral, I don't like that, you're not getting any attention from me when you're doing that. And you can keep turning and blocking and diffusing until the dog finally settles. And then depending on what you're getting from the dog, if the dog's feeling really, and you'll know it in your gut, if you listen to your gut, you pay attention to your gut, if this dog is making you feel uneasy, walk away. If the dog is making you feel, it's fine, he was just really obnoxious, then you can pet him if you want to, or you can also walk away. It's up to you, the person, what you feel safe with.
I always found, and I love dogs. I love being around dogs. But if there's a dog I'm not sure about, if there's a dog that's even a happy dog being really aggressive, I'll completely ignore that dog. Just completely ignore until I think the dog has, because they get all fired up, right? They're all excited. I mean, their processes must be different, but they get all, if they're all wound up, if you just stay calm, if they should calm down. And off, like you said, off leash is tough.
Right. And you can do a lot with your tone of voice, your body language. Animals speak with body language, and they speak more, they understand more the tone of the voice than the actual words. So when you're greeting a dog, if you come in, you're going to have a dog that's jumping at your face, that's going crazy because they're like, oh my goodness, all the energy is here. But if you come in,
this person loves me, this person loves me.
This is amazing. Yeah,
it's true.
But if you come in and you're calmer and you bring even yourself, you do some breathing, you do some grounding, whatever makes sense to you, but bringing your energy down so that you feel like you are very calm. And then you talk to them in a nice, soothing, hey, doggy, how are you? Like the lower, drawn out tones, that will help settle the dog. So using those lower tones, using the neutral language, so there's not excitement to it, it's just a nice, calm, and using those words and that stuff when the dog starts to settle, so that when they're being hyperactive and they're bouncing at you, just divert, be completely neutral, no interaction whatsoever, so that the jumping doesn't get them anything. And they have to start figuring out what gets them what they want. And when they settle, you use your settling tones to kind of bring it down even more.
It's almost like
that's a great way.
It's almost like you're telling the dog, I'll meet you down there towards the middle. You know, when we both get there, then we can talk about this. Now,
and there's also a game. There's a game you can play too if you have a dog that you know or you're pretty sure is fine with treats that you have. You can take some treats, and as the dog comes towards you, you toss the treat past their nose and away from you. So the dog goes to run and get the treat, and then they come back to you, and you toss another one off to the other side. And you toss it off so that every time they come towards you, they run away. So by the time they've done that 4 or 5 times, they start to come towards you, and they're a lot calmer because they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I got to diffuse my energy by going to get the treat, and now I'm settled, and now I'm ready for petting.
And treats are another thing at a dog park. You get somebody, they got one of those bags and it's open and they got the treats and they'll feed, and then they're like, your dog's jumping all over me. I'm going to shut this. And then they shut it and they're like, well, now the dog can't smell the treat. I'm like, come on. That's dogs can smell that. Especially if your hand's all over it. It's like, I don't give any other dogs treats unless I ask. Right. I don't say the word treats. Everybody has the word, you want a boo-boo, you want a treat, you want a TT, whatever the hell they call them, right? Everybody's got their different words. But my dog is funny because if it's just me and I'm walking with a dog, and I could have a whole handful of steak, and she's like, oh yeah. But if there's another dog around, or if it's another person that has it, then she's interested in that. I wonder what's going through. I've always wondered what's going through her mind. Why doesn't she care when I have it, as opposed to if there's another dog or another person around?
That gets more into the resource guarding type of behaviors where they're unsure if that resource is going to get taken away by somebody else. So when she's with you, she's pretty confident that she's going to get it because she knows you her. She's never been hungry with you. So she's pretty safe that, okay, if nobody else is around, I'm going to get it at some point. Whereas when another dog comes into the mix or it's a new person, it's a new picture, and dogs learn in pictures. So when this new dog comes in, it's a whole new scenario. She doesn't know if that dog is going to take what she has or the treat that you have. And that new person, she doesn't know if that person is going to be giving it out to everybody else and skip her.
That's interesting.
So they act different.
I always wondered about that. The other thing is that interests me is my dog is, I call her a surrenderer. When she runs up to another dog, she either stops and lies down when the dog's like 20 yards away. Sometimes it'll be two of them just sit there and stare at each other forever. Or she'll kind of walk up and she'll roll over. And she'll do that about 65% of the time. And she'll roll over, and in all the time we've had her now, 5.5 years, she's only had one dog that she doesn't get along with. Do dogs that surrender get along better than dogs who are alphas, females?
They're easier. They're easier because they usually do not elicit a response from the other dog. As long as the other dog in the mix is a well-socialized, relaxed dog, then when the dog going to greet them, like your dog does, and runs up and does the submissive behaviors, they know that they're not going to be a threat. So your dog is showing very clearly, I'm not a threat. I'd like to meet you, but I'm going to wait until you're ready to meet me, which is a really nice way to meet. So in human terms, it's like somebody coming in and being like, hey, how's it going? I'd love to talk to you when you get a chance. It's no pressure. It's really nice that you feel like you've got the control in the whole situation. So that's what your dog is doing, is giving the control to the other dog, saying, I'd like to meet you at some point when you're ready. Yeah. And the other dog then gets to be really relaxed and come over and say hello.
As opposed to opening a briefcase and go, I'm going to sell you some insurance and I got it right now. Here's an opportunity that you're going to never get again.
Exactly. And then you want to walk away.
Yeah. It's like, enough. Or slap them across the face.
Or slap them, yeah.
All right. I got to ask you, the butt sniffing. What the hell is that all about? Humans don't do that. We don't go around sniffing butts.
No.
What's that all about?
The dogs they get so much information from their nose, and they can smell so much more, that they can smell a lot, even from their butt, of like where they've been, what their digestion is, how their hormones are. Like they can get a whole lot of information from there. So I don't know. I've never really looked up studies of exactly if anybody has done the butt sniffing and exactly what they are sniffing in that butt. But it's a way for them to get to know something about the history of the dog that they're meeting.
Huh. It's kind of like their Facebook page with the about section.
Yes. This is their doggy newspaper.
Yeah. I like that. The Facebook about kind of section.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, I'm not embellishing here, and I know a lot of people think that theirs are, but my dog is the greatest dog probably in the world. In the world.
She is pretty wonderful.
And I tell you, I found that breed, my dog, by the way, is a mini golden doodle. Her mother was a miniature poodle, and her father was a golden retriever.
Wow.
Yep. Full-grown golden retriever. As I like to say, somebody got drunk that night. Right? Somebody drank a lot of alcohol that night.
There was some pretty cool tricks going on there.
Yeah. And they're great because they don't shed. They're very friendly dogs. I mean, almost everyone I've ever met has that same kind of, because golden retrievers are sweet, sweet dogs. They are fun dogs. They have a lot of health issues. They shed. They're lovable, but they're goofballs. With the golden doodles and the minis, you get the brains of the poodle, which is a very smart breed. They don't shed at all, which is, after owning Saint Bernards and dogs that shed forever, it's really a nice change. I'm gonna be honest with you. And they're not very big, fast
Yeah.
but not very big. Uh, when families are going to look for dogs, what what questions should they ask themselves first, and then what questions should they ask a breeder when they get to the place where they're going to buy the dog? Because a lot of times it's kind of this, Mommy, can we have a dog? Yeah, we can buy a dog. And it's COVID and we're all stuck in the house. Or, yeah, we just created a great dog movie. We're going to go buy a dog. And they go home and, believe me, we'll help take care of it. We'll feed it. We'll take it out for walks. No. 99% of the time, it's one person in that house doing 99% of the work. And it's usually
So
the
the
one person.
first,
It's usually the one person who really didn't want the dog. It's just like there's
yeah.
a new car commercial out. I see it with a guy who didn't really want the dog. That's how I was. I didn't want the damn dog, and now I love the dog.
That also happens a lot.
I know. So what are you looking for?
So the very first thing to do is look at your lifestyle. Like, what do you have time for? What are your energy levels? How quiet or chaotic is your house? And look at, like, how many kids do you have? Are you running to sports every day? Do you have enough time to put into training a dog, getting the dog the exercise they need, getting the dog the enrichment it needs, and using their brain to get them to be a nice, well-balanced dog? So if you've come to the conclusion that, yes, you do have enough time to make a commitment to this dog, because having a dog is like having another child. So when you're planning this out, you really have to think, do I want another toddler? This is what you're bringing in, another toddler.
Yeah.
So if you've decided that the toddler works out for your family, then you want to look into, again, like, how chaotic is your house? Do you come home and have all the kids are pretty artistic? They like to go and read or play video games or draw art? Or are they the type of family that wants to go out and they're out running, they're out hiking, they're out kayaking, they're outdoors, they're picnicking, they're doing tons of stuff outside? Because those are going to be two different dogs completely. If you're an outdoorsy person, an active breed that likes to go and move and do a lot of things is great. If you're an indoorsy person, something like a French bulldog or something like that might fit better into what you're doing, because they're low energy. They don't need as much. Greyhounds are another one that seem like they would have a lot of energy, but they really don't. You take them out for a walk and then they lounge around the apartment. And the next is looking at, from the breeds that you've decided might fit in with your lifestyle, what do those breed characters have? So with the French bulldog, for instance, they're smaller. They don't need as much exercise, but they are extremely stubborn and they have a mind of their own. And they're not beginner dogs. They're adorable. They're wonderful. I love them, but they're a lot of dog, and you really have to know what you're doing and be fully committed to figuring out what is high value for this dog, because they are a what's in it for me type of dog.
And I get those
So
little, those sometimes they're little, and those little bastards are strong. I see some of those
Oh,
dogs
yeah.
dragging grown men and grown women like across fields.
Oh yeah, they're little freight trains.
Yeah, they're tough,
And that's
tough dogs.
Yeah. And you have to figure out what's valuable to make them want to work for you. Whereas on the other hand, something like a lab or a golden retriever, those dogs want to please. They come out wanting to do everything that you want them to do. So they're an easier dog to train, but they're also higher energy. So you have to make sure that you've got the time to not only give them the exercise they need and get them out for walks and runs and playing fetch and doing all those things, but also getting their brain tired and giving them ways to teaching them things, teaching them how to whether it's enrichment games and they have to find their food, which is a great thing to do for them, or taking them out.
And I'm just going to stop you for a second, because that's what we've started to do that recently, something that you gave to us, and our dog loves it. I mean,
Yes.
The other day I was in a hurry, so I just put the food in the bowl. You should have seen the look she gave me. She's like, "Are you going to hide this stuff?" I'll find it, but you got to hide it. I mean, and it does. It keeps them thinking. Dogs
really love, there's a term called contra freeloading. And what it is that the dogs really love and prefer to work for their food rather than have it given to them. So when you're able to use their food for training or enrichment throughout the day, a great way to do it is to take the measurement of what they're going to get for their food for the day and then mix in some high value treats and then use that amount to do things throughout the day with. So you can do some puzzle games, you can do some training, you can do some rewarding good behaviors. So if you see your dog go and settle on their bed and be nice and calm, you can go, oh, nice, good, calm. Yes, good job. And drop a little bit of food when they're calm. So you can capture the moment and the behavior that you like. So it encourages the dog to do that behavior more. And then you can also, with that method, build a relationship with you rather than with the food bowl. So you can use their meals to actually become part of their training thing. And that's another thing you can look at when you're deciding if you're getting a dog is, do you have time to do that sort of thing? Or are you strapped for time and throw the food in the bowl and then run out the door? Because that's a totally different thing too.
And that's going to happen sometimes. I mean,
it will, and it's fine.
And it happens to us at least once or twice a week. We're like, we're going to hurry, but the rest of the time, she loves it. It tires her out. Dogs sleep a lot anyway. I don't think people realize how much dogs sleep. Puppies seem to sleep forever.
Yeah, puppies need about 22 hours a day of sleep, and adult dogs need about 18 hours a day for sleep.
Yeah,
so sometimes those anxious, crazy dogs are dogs that are not getting enough sleep at home.
Just like kids, when you had kids, the same thing.
Yeah.
If your kid doesn't have sleep, he's cranky and he's crying, and you're up and you're miserable, absolutely miserable. The other thing I always think people should think about is their age. A lot of people like they'll be 70 years old and they're buying a big dog, and you're like, even if and I'm not saying you're 70 you can't necessarily handle a big dog, but can you? And the other thing is, if you take vacations, do you take a lot of vacation? Do you travel for work a lot? Which is when you have Happy Hounds Center.
Yes. Yep. That's when you can do boarding.
Yeah.
And depending on what else you need, we also have like the training board. That's another great option if you're going away and you want your dog to continue with their training. Finding a place that actually has some structure and training involved keeps your dog learning their manners rather than going to a place, getting anxious, getting stressed, and coming home to you with lots of behaviors that it didn't have before.
All worked up. A couple more questions I have for you. One is household hazards. We have taken our dog in 5 years 3 times to the emergency clinic, which costs, I don't care if your dog has open heart surgery or has a burr taken out of her paw. You go to the emergency clinics and it's $175,942.15. It doesn't matter what you spend.
Yes.
It's $1,200 no matter what you do. It's just the most bizarre thing. And in our cases, it was chocolate. Our dog loves chocolate. And now I know that you give them the hydrogen peroxide. You can do it up to 5 times, once every 10 minutes, I think it is. But a lot of dogs are poisoned and die every year. When you get a new dog, you have to. What are the things you have to think about as far as that goes?
It's basically like baby-proofing your dog for your puppy, or baby-proofing your house, for your dog. So when you're doing it, you want to think about the same things you would for a toddler, making sure the cleaning products are locked away, making sure the medications are locked away. A lot of those medications have a candy coating or a sweeter coating on the outside, so the dogs are interested in eating them. And if they do, it can cause kidney failure and death, like pretty quick after eating it. Putting away anything like chocolate. There's lists online. There's a whole bunch of lists of things that dogs can't eat as far as food, but I can't go over them all right now. But there are lists online of like what are the dangerous foods for dogs, and things like raisins and chocolate and sometimes onions. Like there's a lot of things that they shouldn't eat that is readily available.
That's another one. I took the dog there because she ate an entire onion. I was like, what, are you crazy? And she had to stay overnight that time.
Yeah. And most of the time it's stuff that we wouldn't think of. Like, why would you eat an onion? It doesn't make any sense. Dogs don't always make sense. And then other things like socks. And I've heard of so many dogs that have gone to the emergency room because they ate a sock. So making sure that your rooms are picked up, the kids' toys are picked up. It's a lot of, again, it's like having a toddler. Whatever they can get in their mouth, they will put in their mouth. Chicken bones are one. Any cooked bone can splinter and cause issues. So you want to make sure that those cooked bones are definitely thrown away in a place where they can't get to it. Trash being locked away or under a cabinet or in a different room.
And these
Because
dogs are
if
sneaky
they have it,
and they're sneaky son of a guns. They will find one of the times where she found chocolate. I don't even know how she did it. She must have like made a deal with a bird and got the bird to come in and knock the chocolate off. I don't know how she did it, but she had a tire, one of the big during Halloween, the big Hershey chocolate bars, and here we are in the emergency room, the hydrogen peroxide and right in the checkout. Yeah, right in the checkout.
yeah. Compost is another one that dogs love to get into. That's very dangerous because of the bacteria that can grow in there.
Oh, no shit.
Yep. So having compost put away.
Get the
Yeah.
joke.
I didn't get that.
And that's weird
Yeah.
because we have a big compost outdoor unfenced compost pile in our backyard.
Yeah, and sometimes some dogs go after it, some dogs don't. It really depends again on your dog. Like there are some dogs that will eat a sock no problem, and other dogs are like, leave it, never look at it. So it's really being more cautious than saying, oh, it might be fine, and then having it not be fine. Because sometimes, like the compost, if they get into the compost and they decide that today that was the day, they can die pretty quickly. Like it's something that can really take them out fast. So
we're making notes of that.
Better.
That's
better safe than sorry with dogs.
Yeah, and she's never been she's never touched it. We don't roll it all the time either. The other question I just had in my mind, and I think I might have forgotten it, which is so unlike me because I'm so organized and I don't have ADHD. Dear God, I can't remember. I had one more question for you, and I cannot remember what it is.
I have a whole bunch of things that I could talk about. So if you remember that question, you could put it in if you want.
What do you got? What else do you want to talk about?
So I had
before you go, can you tell people your website again?
Yes. So the website is www.heroesbts.com. And heroes is plural. So it's HEROES. B is in ball, T is in Tom, S is in Sam.
Yep.
And now we go by the Happy Hounds Center because there are 4 trainers that work as a co-op there. And Heroes Boarding and Training is my company. That's what it originally started with, which is why we have the Heroes BTS as our website.
That's very good. All right. So, what do you got? What else you got?
So some things. So a great way to use food to build relationships and to get a more confident dog, relaxed dog. There are lots and lots of games that you can play, and they're fun, and the dog loves it. And like you said, your dog now loves to work for food because most dogs do. So you can work on things like handler focus and ignoring the environment. You can work on loose leash walking. You can work on having dogs disengage from something that's very exciting. And we have all of these games. These are a great way. It's all positive reinforcement type games. But one example is as you're walking along and you have your dog next to you, there's the reward zone, which is basically that area when your dog is right next to your pant seam. Yeah. So if you want to teach a really nice heel, you can teach it without having to jerk on the leash or tell them heel a million times by just starting to reward only when they're in that position. So when they're right next to your leg, not when they're in front, not when they're in back, but when they're right in that little area around that pant seam, that's when you give the treats. And dogs are opportunistic. So they will learn that this is where I get all the good stuff and I don't get anything there and I don't get anything there. So they're going to start to naturally want to be in that spot. And if you're working on loose leash walking, as they're next to you and they look up at you, you can toss little treats to them and you can have them catch it. And then again, you're teaching them it's really rewarding to stand next to me and catch my kibble and catch my breakfast and be more focused on my person than what's going on around. So it not only helps you get your heel, get a dog that walks without having to pull on them or get dragged or anything like that, saving your shoulder from the PT. And it also helps them ignore what's out in the environment because you are way more exciting than the squirrel and the bird and the other dog and the other person. So it's a great way to start that heel position that you see those people walk down the street with barely any touching the line and the dog is just walking along nice to them. That's a great way to start it.
And I have to say, I do watch, I don't watch a lot of TV. For whatever reason, I like that Caesar Milan, the dog.
Milan, yeah.
And you never know how much of that is staged, right? You just don't know. But the one thing he does talk about is the shorter leash and having the leash up higher, which I actually did. I actually went on and I bought one of his leashes because I couldn't find one at the little leash store. but it was a slip on. It was a smaller one, and I did find, especially with our friend, we have a good friend who has a full, looks just like my dog Elle, but it's a full grown. Gracie weighs about 75 pounds, and Gracie was a little wild, but with that leash, and they're like, that leash won't hold her. And they have one of those harnesses, and they're always like dragging and pulling back, and it's almost like the dog's like, "Come on, I'll pull you." But would I put that leash up near her ears, and I can just hold it loose, and she will just stay right there. I think the loose leash thing. I think dogs that get that are much easier to deal with as a whole. So
They are.
can you talk to that loose leash, why it's important, and how you can get your dog? I mean, you've already gave us one example, but can you give us some more examples of how and why you want to get your dog to be there?
Yeah. So what you were talking about with that leash being up behind their ear, it's a much more sensitive part of the neck. And so when you put a little pressure upwards, the dog wants to lift up so they can't put their weight down and drag you, which is why it works. And you'll see it in all the show rings. They always have those little dainty lines that are right behind the dog's ears. And that's why the dogs are all upright and prancing along, because that leash, that pressure just behind their ears and around this part of their neck, it's very sensitive. So they don't want to push on it. So they hold themselves up. So that's why that works. And that is a good trick if you need to get something done and you don't want them to be dragging you. You can use that to get somewhere. If you're building a long-term behavior, that's when the rewarding on that zone and getting the dog to want to be there is going to help you. And when you're doing that, having a dog that can stay next to you in that position where they're not dragging you somewhere or they're not at the end of the leash, it's a lot more stress reducing. So it's not as their levels of energy and their levels of anxiety get up higher and higher as they're pulling and as they're dragging, because they're getting to the end of the leash. They're feeling the pressure from the leash itself. They're also feeling the tension in your body, whether it's just because you're trying to hold them back or not. That tension in your body leads them to believe that there's something to be anxious about. And then when people are getting dragged, they're not happy about it. So your anxiety level gets up because you're not sure if you can control your dog and what's going to happen if another dog comes around the corner or they see that squirrel or see that other thing and they're going to drag me and they're going to take me out and I don't know what to do. So it's just back and forth between the dog and the person, building and building on the anxiety. When that dog is out ahead of you or not paying attention, you don't feel like you've got the control. When your dog is next to you, you're more relaxed, you're easier going. So the dog gets your energy feedback. And then the dog is also, because he's not at the end of the leash and he's focused on you, his job is now focused on the present. And there's a really great saying that the anxiety derives from focusing on what's in the future, and the calmness comes from focusing on the present. So when he's right next to you and they're looking at you, they're focusing on this moment rather than what's over there, what's the squirrel, what's the dog, and just getting more and more overstimulated.
And correct me if I'm wrong, either on leash or off leash, this is really important, because if the dog does see something and it bolts, even and gets off the leash falls out of your hand, or it's off leash and it just bolts because it doesn't have that calm, submissive kind of attitude. It can be a squirrel running in front of a car. It can be a dog going after a bear. It can be a dog going after a coyote. It can be, a lot of different things. It can be very dangerous. So it's really a safety issue. And the dogs like that kind of discipline. They like that kind of structure, rather, as not really discipline but structure. So these kind of things are really important for the safety of your dog.
Right. Because it's similar to having kids. When you've got a teenager, they keep testing their boundaries. Yeah. And if you have parents that are very gray area where the kid sometimes gets away with it and sometimes doesn't, you get a kid that's pretty anxious and not happy. Whereas when you get the kids that have parents that have very clear boundaries of black and white, of this is okay and this is not okay and it's always this way, they're much more relaxed. They know what they're supposed to do. And it's the same for the dog. When the dog knows that this is how we walk and this is what we do, they can then be more relaxed, as opposed to the times where sometimes they can do this, sometimes they can't. And it makes them more anxious and more alert to what else can be out there, because now they have to make the decision. Do I have to go after that squirrel, or do I have to do this? Whereas when they feel comfortable and confident that their person can handle it, if the person's like, oh, I'm not worried about the squirrel, then the dog can go, oh, I'm not either. And if for some reason they do see something that they really just can't leave alone, you see it coming earlier and you're able to correct it faster so you can get your dog back either by turning and leaving the situation completely or by getting the dog reinterested in some food or playing some games or doing things where all of a sudden that thing that they were like, oh, they're like, oh, wait, mom's better. I forgot.
Yeah.
So it's giving you that chance to change the narrative of what your walk is going to be. And another thing is that not all dogs enjoy walks. Sometimes dogs get so anxious and so worked up that walks are not great for them. And you can do all of this stuff in your backyard, around your home, and get them just as exercised and just as tired as if you're going out for a mile walk where they're going, there's that, there's that, there's that, there's that. Ah. You can take those anxious dogs and the dogs that are very, very reactive, and you can do a ton of stuff in their own backyard or in a very controlled environment somewhere where you take them to a spot where you know it's going to be a certain way. And that's plenty for them. They don't always have to go for walks. People don't have to walk every dog. It's just as long as they're getting that mental stimulation and the connection with you and the exercise, they're good.
Then they're getting what they need.
Yep.
And it's dogs are a lot like you said, a lot like kids.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I was taking my kids. My kids were like 15 and 12, and they're giving me a hard time once we were out somewhere, and 2 daughters. And this old guy said the strangest thing I've ever heard in my life. He said, "That's the problem with this generation. You can't hit them with a sock full of shit anymore." I was like, "No, I don't think you legally ever could." It was the most bizarre thing anyone ever said to me. I was like,
I've never heard of that.
I didn't know what to say, and I'm rarely speechless. I just looked at him. I was like, "Oh, thank you for playing our game. We'll be back soon."
Yes.
Hey, Colleen Campbell from. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
3.
Do you want? I have a few other things if you want.
Oh yeah,
for,
let's keep going. Jack.
Yeah.
We're gonna go from right before I said Colleen Campbell. Bump. All right, what else you got?
Okay. So for another way with those reactive dogs that don't do well on the walk, another great way to use the food and to build that relationship at home is to work on fitness.
Yeah.
So getting them to use themselves using gymnastic movements on platforms and on balls and stability pillows, and using the lure with the food so that they can also, it helps calm them down because all they have to do is follow that food. And as they're following that food, you're encouraging their body to go into the correct position so that they're building themselves in a good structure way. So it's great for puppies. It's great for rehab. It's great for older dogs. It's good for dogs that are anxious. It's great for a lot of dogs, sporting dogs.
I mean, I would love that. I would love that. I mean, why wouldn't a dog love that?
Yeah. And it's a great way to, again, incorporate feeding time into your daily routine.
Yeah.
And then as far as the feeding, when you're looking for a food, there's some great ways to look for a food that you can afford, because not everybody can afford to feed raw and feed something that costs $400 a week. That's just out of reach for almost everybody. But finding a food that's in your budget and then looking at the brands, the ingredient lists of each one of those foods, and finding out what is the best food in your budget. And when you're looking at those ingredient lists, that can sometimes be pretty confusing. So as you're looking at it, you want to find the top 5 ingredients. That's what makes up the biggest percentage of what's in that food. And you want to find those 5 ingredients that you would like to eat. If it looks like a meal that you want to have, it's probably pretty good for your dog. Something like corn is just a filler for dogs. They don't get any nutritional value from it. So if there's a lot of corn in those first 5 ingredients, skip that one. It's not as great as something else. Staying away from byproducts and byproduct meals. Mm-hmm. Those are basically just the scraps off the floor, of which you don't want. Foods that have a lot of dyes can sometimes cause cancer. So you want something that's more of a natural colored food, not a lot of dyes in there. And then when you're looking at the top 5 ingredients, it's good to remember that there are a lot of dogs that have sensitivities to chicken now. So if you're feeding a food and your dog seems to be licking at their paws a lot, their paws are really red and irritated and they're always licking, it could be a food allergy and it could be chicken. Yeah. So switching out the protein in the food is sometimes something that can help with skin allergies, foot allergies, like a lot of itching. And when you're feeding, looking at the protein levels in the food is important too. puppies, sporting dogs, those type of dogs need a lot of protein in their diet,
Yeah.
and they'll have a higher protein, whereas dogs that are just pets don't need a lot of protein. And if you're feeding a protein rich food that's like 24% or higher, you might be getting a dog that's more reactive and more aggressive because they have all this pent up energy that they don't know what to do with. So it's kind of like a little roided out guy. He's just waiting for something to go at. So making sure you're sticking down around like 19 to 21% protein is good for most dogs.
And that's all on that's all on the label.
Yep, it's all on the label. There's all that information in there.
I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah.
I always thought that dogs just ate what you put in front of them.
Yeah.
Although I know that's not true because one of our St. Bernards, one lived to 9, the other one lived to be 12. And they were both, like I said, one was 205 pounds, the other one was like 185 pounds. But they ate nothing but table scraps. We had 6 people in the family, and they never ate anything but table scraps. They were perfectly healthy, but both of them, you would put everything in. And they would both eat everything, including pickles. But if there was a cucumber in there, a slice of cucumber, or that much of a cucumber, it would be, and we put like a pill that they were supposed to be taking in there. The pill and the cucumber would be there. Elle, the mini golden doodle's a good eater, but if there is one pea in there, I did it the other day. I made peas, so I just hid one underneath their food. If there's even if there's like dried peas in the food that I buy her, she will, before she eats, will pick out every single one of those little peas and put them in a pile. She doesn't like peas. And then I tried a fresh pea. Maybe one day, nope, she took it out before she ate the other day and she left it there. She does not like peas. I mean,
every dog is different. They all, just like people, we all have our likes and dislikes. Feeding a balance of like what you're doing, where you've got some regular natural food, you have some kibble, and even some raw, helps their digestive system stay well balanced. And it also gives you a lot of options when you're using food as training. So you can do those high value treats as well as kibble for the boring stuff, and you can do stuff like that. But yeah, and if you have a picky eater, doing the food games usually will help them eat more, because
I didn't know that.
Sometimes they don't want to eat out of the bowl, but when it becomes a game and they have to chase their food down, they're more apt to eat that because it's fun, it's engaging.
And then they're in it. I tell you, the big advantage of having a mini golden doodle as opposed to the St. Bernard is the size of the bag you need to carry during your walk. The only difficult thing is you can't always find those little poops. St. Bernard poops, no problem. You can find them anywhere.
Yeah,
anywhere.
They're huge.
Now, dogs. In it happened to my St. Bernard ones. They had a one of them. I can't remember which one. They had to have an enema. Dogs can get backed up like people.
They can, yep, and they can also have problems with their anal glands if they're. So normally when they poop, they have little anal glands that get expressed while they're pooping.
Yeah.
But if they're constantly having soft poop, those won't get expressed, and they can sometimes build up and have to be released by a vet, it's a really nasty thing.
Is that what your groomer clips when you get your dog groomed?
They'll clip around it sometimes.
My
sometimes
groomer used to clip. She retired, but she used to say, "You want those glands?" And I know what the hell she was talking about. So I said yes. I didn't. I was like, okay. For all I know, they were taking.
Yeah, sometimes they'll squeeze them out to get the. Yeah, it's really gross. It's the back end of the dog. Nothing is really pleasant back there. But so if you're constantly having a dog that has soft poop, that can be an issue. And then on the other side, if your dog isn't moving enough, if they're not drinking enough water, and they don't have enough fiber in their diet, they can also have getting backed up. So pumpkin is a great thing to put in their food. Yogurt is a great thing to put, like Greek yogurt, not the one with a lot of sugars, but the one that's more natural. Those ones are really great to put in their food to help keep their digestive tract regular and on schedule.
I'm going to do a show. We do 60-second and 3-minute shorts. I'm going to do one where I make dog food. Now, my vet told me that I shouldn't I'm just make it for that one meal for my dog. Because at one point I was like, I want to make dog food. And she's like, it's not that easy.
There's a lot of nutritional balance that you have to put into it. And there's sometimes a lot of vets don't even know exactly what the nutritional value should be for every dog. So if you're looking to do raw, you really want to find a nutritionist, because they're the ones that are going to know and tell you how to balance for your specific dog. Because that's what their whole schooling is all about, is that nutrition.
I can see it now. Hey, what's the matter with Fido? Be like, I don't know. I made him sticky pork ribs with red pepper flakes and star anise, and and Marcella wine. The poor dog is near death, you know. And I'm joking, but be careful what you feed your dog. You never know. You never
Yep,
know.
you can overdo it, you can underdo it. There's like some, like the A, D, E, and K, all of those vitamins are ones that are fat soluble.
Yeah.
So they can overdose on those, they can get an overload of those. And if they get an overload, it can cause issues. And then things like vitamin C and those sort of things, they're water soluble. So they can, you know, if you feed too much, it just goes and gets excreted out. So it's just a waste of money, but it's not going to do anything bad.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, if you feed too much, you can have an issue.
Yeah.
And then if you don't feed enough, you also have an issue. So
Yeah.
it's important to be balanced.
You want the biblical, not the non-biblical. This too shall pass.
Yes.
That's what you want to concentrate on.
Uh-huh.
What else we got? Dogs, food.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody. I love my dog. Dog lovers are dog lovers. You know, you can always tell a dog lover. You can always tell a good dog owner. You show me a bad dog, and 99% of the time they've got I'll find a bad person who owns that dog. Usually, dogs.
Yeah.
There's usually not dog. Am I right? Or am I just thinking this? There's usually not dog problems. There's people problems.
As you said, 90% of the time it's people problems. And it's not always because the person's bad. Sometimes they just don't know. Sometimes it's because the person is dealing with their own stuff and it's just, you know, overflowing onto the dog.
Yeah.
And there's like the dogs are very sensitive. They're little mirrors. So if you have a household that's very loud and very chaotic, that dog's going to be more anxious and more like, oh. Whereas if you have a dog that's very in a home where it's very quiet and relaxed and chilled, as long as they're getting their stimulation and mentally and physically, they're going to be super chilled. But every now and then you do get a dog that has a neurological imbalance, which happens with people too. And those are the ones where it's a management situation and you do the best you can. But most of the time, if it's a person problem, depending on if the person is willing, there is a way to fix it.
Yeah.
If the person is not willing, then there's really not much to be done.
And there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing I worry about my dog is, sometimes she's a little too friendly, so she'll run up to somebody, and I swear she would jump in anybody's car and go home and not miss a beat. She's like, "It's a new place." Yep. I really like my old friends. They were great. It's just a new experience, and if you see him, tell him no hard feelings. I'm just afraid she would leave and go with somebody else. She hops into people's cars all the time. The one habit I can't break her of.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't go home with that person. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, yep. Some are just very gregarious, like little girl.
Yep. And her favorite thing to do is run up to somebody, sit on their lap, and look straight up. Uh-huh. She just looks up and it's like, "What do you got up there? You got food? You got anything? I'm cute. Feed me.
I love you. Don't you love me?"
Hey, Colleen Campbell, thank you so much for being with us. We love our dogs. It's really important how we take care of our dogs, how we feed our dogs, what our dogs eat, what our dogs don't eat. My dog loves salad. I don't know if she really likes salad, but she loves to eat grass. Drives me up a wall. Before I let you go, does that mean the dog has some kind of upset stomach, or is it just, why do dogs eat grass?
It can.
A lot of dogs do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of dogs who do it. Sometimes it's they might just have eaten something and their stomach doesn't feel good. And so they want to go eat grass and throw up to get their stomach back in track. Sometimes it's because there's a digestive imbalance and they need some probiotics. Yeah. Sometimes it's just a behavioral thing where they just like doing it, or it's a anxiety, nervous type of thing. So it can mean a lot of things. It can be digestive. So it's always a great thing to check where if they're eating grass, check and make sure that they're acting normally. Otherwise, it might be a sign that something's going on.
Yeah, she's been doing it since she was a puppy. And she doesn't throw up. Once in a while she does. Yep. Every once in a while your dog throws up. And it's usually because they've gotten to something, and they're usually not going to die. Because you get nervous, but if your dog throws up, you keep an eye on him, right? Or him or her. I always say her. If you have a boy dog, you always say him. If you have a girl dog, you always say her. It doesn't matter. How old is she? It's a he. I'm sorry. And if it's a little dog, you pick it up and look, but if it's a Great Dane.
Usually you can see the Great Dane walking at you. It's pretty obvious what they are.
Oh my God. I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to say a word because I'm a gentleman. Colleen, thank you so much for being with us today. It's the Happy Hounds Center. Give us your phone number too, and your Facebook page is Happy Hounds Center on Facebook.
Yes, we have Happy Hounds Center on Facebook, and the phone number is 413-397-9792.
Right. Any YouTube stuff out there? Any Instagram?
We do have a TikTok channel, which is under Happy Hounds Center as well.
Yep.
We're just starting that one, so it's not as active yet, but we will be posting more stuff soon.
I love the stuff you post on Facebook. I like seeing my dog having fun, and I can speak for you. I can speak for your organization and your business as a client, and I'll say you guys are great. My dog loves it, and we've been there 5.5 years, and she's just happy every time she gets to go there. And she knows we still call it by the name that it started with
Mhm.
5 years ago. So if you can't say out loud, Bow Wow, you want to go to Bow Wow? Because if you say Bow Wow, she goes crazy.
Yeah,
So you don't say it
that's
out
great.
loud. Or if you say it out loud
That's
and it happens to be like you forget, and you guys are actually almost never closed, but almost never. But if you say the word Bow Wow, and if your dog gets that happy and that excited, you know something good's going on there. So thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Look at my bald head. Bald. Bald. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Cooking Something Good after this. Stick around. Hey, it's time for one of my favorite segments, Seattle to Sunapee. You're looking at that picture, you're saying, that's not AJ. That's not Andrea Jorgensen. You listened to my opening monologue where I said, Andrea Jorgensen, AJ will be with us. I forgot she's on assignment. Did I do better? Oh, I don't know if I did better because I don't want to insult Andrea, but I did great. I've got another Seattle resident, and it happens to be one of my favorite people. It's just one of my favorite persons ever. It's Lexi Rose Duso. Yeah, she's my niece. She's incredibly smart, pretty, nice, kind, and she loves food. Lexi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
Oh.
That's quite the introduction.
It's so true, so true. How long have you've just been in Seattle? A short time? Is that true?
I know we moved in June.
Wow. And what do you? And you're working out there, and your significant other, who does not work for State Farm, is
Yes.
So where are you guys working?
Jake. So he works for Morgan Stanley, and I work for Amazon. Amazon's headquartered here. So here we are.
Yeah. What a move, huh?
Quite the move. Big move from Boston.
How do you like it so far?
I love it. We've had a really nice summer. The weather's been really good. So we haven't hit the rainy season yet. We've been exploring the Pacific Northwest. So it's been really good.
And the food out there. What do you think? You're a food lover. You're a foodie.
I'm a foodie, food lover. It's definitely different, but in a good way. There's a lot of really good seafood, a lot of really good Asian cuisine, really good sushi. Been eating a lot of salmon. So good stuff.
And Larry David said not too much salmon.
No, I didn't know that.
Because of the mercury.
Oh, right. I'll be careful.
Yeah. Be careful.
I will be. For you.
Now, there's what's it called? A Biscuit Bitch?
Yeah.
Have you been there? Now, Andrea talks about it.
Yes. I've been to Biscuit Bitch, and I've been to the Seattle Biscuit Company, which I think people usually have a favorite.
Which is your favorite?
I think they're different experiences. Biscuit Bitch is more of a handheld biscuit sandwich, whereas Seattle Biscuit Company is knife and fork. They do fried chicken, gravy, it's real stick to your ribs kind of stuff.
Huh. So you like them both?
I like them both.
But if you're
depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah, and if you're in a hurry, would you say Biscuit Bitch more so?
Yeah, and it's closer to where I live. So then there's 2 locations. So it's a little easier to get to.
A lot of people don't know anything about Seattle. I'm supposed to be standing up straighter. I still didn't get. I'm out of makeup. They make me wear makeup, right? In my face, and I don't notice it. But then I look, and my face looks all red and blotchy because it's been cold and rainy today.
They'll fix it in post.
There's not much you could fix. People are looking at these two, going, "Wow, very beautiful." Bald. I think that's what I think that's what they see. Seattle. I don't know much about Seattle. I know where it is, but talk to us a little bit about what it's like. Some of the experiences, some of the attractions, the landscape.
Yeah, I mean it's beautiful. I didn't know really anything about Seattle when we found out that we were moving here, so I've learned a lot in a short amount of time. But I thought that we were right on oceanfront. But really we're about a 3-hour drive from beaches, because the Puget Sound is just so huge. There's so much so many inlets and lakes and a lot of waterfront. some beautiful like lake waterfront homes and like places to swim and kayak, and it's a very like outdoorsy city. A lot of people do like hikes on the weekends. There's like beautiful mountains, the whole like Olympic mountain range, Mount Rainier. Yeah, it's a cool spot.
Mount Rainier, that's the one that blew up, isn't it?
I think that's Mount St. Helens.
Mount St. Helens, yeah.
Maybe.
Something
Yeah.
happened on Mount Rainier. I can't remember what it
Yeah.
was. Fire or
Something. It's crazy, Mount Rainier. Like, you know, you're having a good weather day when you can see it. Like, it just appears like in the distance some days when it's like especially clear, and it's beautiful.
So then you know. How about the wild animals out there? Do you have a list of like out here? There's not a lot of stuff out here, right? New England.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really had any like nature run-ins. I'm determined to see an orca while I live up here.
Well, Puget Sound's famous for the orcas, right?
Yeah, there's like apps where people track them and like put sightings and what direction they were going, and you can try to like spot one. But I guess it's mostly luck anyway.
Yeah. And grizzly bears, mountain lions, anything like that out there? Are you aware of these? Do you get warnings?
I'm not aware of these. I'm sure they're up out here, but I haven't been doing a lot of like, I haven't been in wilderness very much in the city. It's more like rats. That's the issue.
A lot of rats in Seattle? It doesn't seem like a dirty city. Every
There's
city's
rats in any city.
Yeah, every city's got their thing, I guess. You have to know this stuff because say you're walking up the thing, you got a Biscuit Bitch sandwich, right?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
I would throw it and run.
Well, I think you're never supposed to run. You're supposed to walk backwards and make noise and wear.
Scream.
I think if you wore this coat, which is my JSJ, my Jim Shea jacket, I think if you wore my JSJ, and you know what the reference is, and my listeners don't, I think this would scare away a bear or a mountain lion. I don't know if there are bears or mountain lions out there.
I don't know. I've seen a coyote, but we have coyotes in
every day.
Massachusetts.
You have coyotes in this downtown Boston, for crying out loud. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
they're everywhere.
So what else? I mean, where have you any restaurants that you love? A lot of people travel to Seattle. If you had to tell them what restaurants you'd tell them to go to.
I just went to a place on Friday called Rock Creek Fish House, I believe. And that was really amazing. I had jerk swordfish with yuca fries and lardons. It was amazing.
What did they use for? I was going to say what made them. I'll say what made them a jerk, but that's not what I meant. What made them jerk? No, what made? Do you know what they use for jerk seasoning or?
I'm not sure. I've had like different, like I've had jerk chicken before and stuff. It was same like seasoning blend, I guess, but I loved it. It was probably one of like the best bites that I've had. And they had some other really good stuff. We had like oysters Rockefeller. We had like a seafood stew. Yeah, that was a good dinner. The fish. Yeah. Get the fish wherever.
Get the fish. If you're going to get married out there, get the fish.
Yep.
Now, Washington is renowned for their wine. They actually have some great wines. Have you been to any wineries yet?
Yeah, I went up to, the name's escaping me, but there's like Wall Wall Wine Country, which is like 4-ish hour drive from Seattle.
Yeah.
And then there's like a closer little wine region. I went to a wedding at JM Cellars, which is located in that area. It's going to bother me. What is it called? I have my little Google right here.
Google it up because we want to know. And when you go to these places, can you get the names of people and send it to us so that maybe we can call them up and interview them?
Yeah, for sure.
We're really looking to do, and Eddie, we're looking for more stories too. We like stories about 5-year-old boys that learn how to make macaroni and cheese and bring it to their elderly next door neighbor, or people who have great stories, touching stories. So if you hear anything like that, that's what we're looking for. We're interested in those kind of things.
I'll keep my ears open, but it's Woodinville.
Woodinville, and that's the winery.
Yeah, that's like the wine. That's like the town that all these wineries are in.
All right.
And I guess a lot of them like use some Washington grapes and then also import grapes and then like make blends and stuff. But yeah, it's a really cute area.
Yeah. And the Puget Sound goes all the way in 40, 50, 60 miles. It's pretty big. It's enormous.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It's funny. I know a little about a lot. I know almost nothing about Seattle. Seattle and Portland, I don't know anything about, but I think ships go in there, right? The big ships go in, so it's...
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, ports.
Now, how far are you from the Canadian border?
I actually drove up to Vancouver a few weeks back, and it took like maybe 2.5 hours
Yeah.
to get from Seattle to Vancouver,
What
so
was
not far.
what was Vancouver? We're doing a whole thing on Canada in the winter. What was Vancouver like?
It was beautiful. I mean, we went in September,
Mm-hmm.
so the whole like snowy tourism time hasn't started yet when
Yeah,
we went,
I was
but
I was in Quebec yesterday, so same deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful there. Like Vancouver's a very cool city. It's like very modern, but then they have like kind of an old town area. We biked around Stanley Park, which like if I give one recommendation in Vancouver is to rent bikes and bike around Stanley Park. It's amazing.
Is it bigger than the one in Westfield, Massachusetts?
I think so.
A little bigger.
It's a little bigger.
Vancouver's on my list too. I've never been to Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. Although a lot
You
of
could
people,
do all of them in one trip.
yeah,
It's all pretty close.
a lot of people are saying that Portland's a little tough right now, a little rough and tumble, not a place you want to go.
Yeah, I went down to Portland a week ago, two
Yeah.
weeks ago. Um, and I drove to Portland, spent a couple of nights there, and then drove out to the Oregon coast to
Yeah.
Cannon Beach. And Portland, I think the rumors are true. It's like a few people that I was talking to, like in Cannon Beach, which is like beautiful coastal town.
Yeah,
They were like, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like our city, it kind of
fell apart.
like in COVID fell apart a bit.
Yeah.
But people are also saying it's getting better. So
Well, that's
I mean,
good.
I had a great dinner there. I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but
Well, from now on, you're our roving reporter in the Northeast, in the Northwest.
yeah, I'm gonna send you a report every time I eat somewhere where it is and if it's
yes,
good.
and you do
And if there's any stories.
any great stories and little Zoom calls, little 5-minute Zoom calls to talk about if there's like a cool fish tank with a real mermaid inside the fish tank. That a real, not like a woman dressed up in a mermaid outfit. I mean, a real mermaid. That would be a story we'd be interested, right?
Gotcha.
If there was an
Gotcha.
ancient civilization in a big hole filled with water that they came up and got takeout food, that would be a story we'd be interested. If there was,
Gotcha.
right, if there was someone who ate a special kind of Brussels sprouts only grown in a region in the Northwest, and everyone who ate those sprouts became 9 foot 4 inches tall, we're looking for those kind of things, Lex.
Gotcha.
All
Okay.
right.
I'll keep that in mind and I'll start seeking out those for you.
Yes. But then if you just find some really great food and nice people who own restaurants or managers or chefs or people in from little stories like that, yeah, we'd be interested in that too.
Okay.
But ancient Mayans, yeah,
Perfect.
like real ancient Mayans, not like actors and actresses. I'm not
Gotcha.
interested
I will
in that.
keep my eyes peeled for both.
Lexi Rose Duso, our newest roving reporter in the Northwest. Tell Jake we said hi. We miss him.
I will.
Nice young man. Very nice young man. And
Yes, he is.
you guys are doing great out there. A great couple. You're just two of my favorites. I smile every
Aw.
time I think about you guys.
Love that. Well, it's nice to catch up with you.
It is. I love you very much. And am I supposed to say that? Can I say that? It's my
Yeah.
niece. Yeah, I
I'm
can
not
say
a
that.
colleague.
Yeah, I can
I
say
love you too.
All right. Lexi, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more right after this of Cooking Something Good. Stick around. Hey, that's it. Cooking Something Good is coming to an end. I'm going to fix my coat up. I'm out of makeup. They tell me I'm supposed to wear makeup, and I got a big bald head, and it's got a little blotchy spots. It's got me a little confused today. I don't know if it's got me confused. Great show we had today. I had a great time with Colleen Campbell. She is with the Happy Hounds Center. We talked about dogs. Like, my dog, El the Mini Golden Doodle, the greatest dog in the whole world. Well, maybe she's not the greatest dog. To me, she's the greatest dog. And that's the beauty of dogs. Everybody thinks their dog is the greatest dog of all time, which is impossible because a lot of people are well, they're assholes. And if you want to see a mean dog, usually show me a jerk. If a jerk owns a dog, then it's a mean dog. But mostly dogs are great. And she talked about the best thing to feed your dog that you love so much, how to train your dog to keep your dog that you love so much safe. It was a fun show. It was a dog show. And then we talked to my niece, Lexi Rose Duso, the newest reporter in the Seattle to Sunapee series. She is joining Andrea out there. She's recently moved out there, probably 6 or 7 months ago. She is a great chef in her own right, and she is a foodie, so she is going to give us some great restaurants and great things to do, food related on the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. She's hit them all so far. I can't wait to have her be part of this. Until next time, remember, here at Cooking Something Good, food is fun, fun is food, and it's always foodie fun time. So we'll see you around. Be good, be safe, and goodbye.